Cheers!
Welcome to Movie Bitches. Episode 241. Tonight we're reviewing Blumhouse's Fantasy Island.
Where they want to distinct it.
Yeah.
From all of the huge Fantasy Island fans that were going to go see this movie.
And be confused.
And go, what happened? Where's Ricardo Montalban?
First things first, shout out to our wine sponsor, Wink. Try wink.com/moviebitches. You get $22 off your first month of wine.
Make sure to subscribe, share, hit the thumbs up, comment. Were you a fan of the original television series? We'll talk about Michael Peña's accent. Let us know.
Yeah. I knew nothing about any of this.
Right. I know very little. I know Fantasy Island was a TV show, and Ricardo Montalban was the host. Or, not the host. Well, he's Mr. Rourke.
Oh, okay. Right. He's the
host of Fantasy Island.
The host of the island,
And the whole famous thing was, I forget his name in real life, but Tattoo was a little person who would go, the plane, and it was like a thing. That was like the takeaway.
Gotcha.
The pop culture takeaway from it was, the plane.
Huh.
The plane.
What was the plot of the show?
So my understanding is you come to Fantasy Island, they'll make any of your fantasies come true, but instead of it becoming a horror movie, it's more like you learned about yourself, or you had a moral judgment call and you grew as a person, and you left Fantasy Island, maybe not with the exact fantasy you thought you wanted, but you're better for it.
You got what you needed, not what you wanted, kind of thing.
Yeah.
What we want, what we need is all the same thing, yes?
Ow! Is the same thing? No!
It's like an episode of Quantum Leap. I mean, it's not as good as Quantum Leap because, come on. Holy shit. But that sort of moral, and we started here and we ended up here.
Gotcha. They kind of did that a little with this movie.
Yeah.
So, spoiler alert, I would say don't bother with this movie.
Nah. I'm bummed. Because there's infinite possibilities, right?
Sure.
With Fantasy Island. And that's why the TV show worked, right? Oh, this week.
Right. Oh, yeah, we're going to...
And the fantasies they picked were so boring.
Yeah, they were basic, kind of.
There was nothing
and weird.
Outrageous.
No.
Give me like a nerdy paleontologist that's like, I want to be amongst the dinosaurs. Let's get weird.
Sure.
Instead of I was sad because I didn't say yes to the boyfriend that proposed to me.
Right.
I'm sad. I'm like, oh, well, that's a bummer.
And then I was like, oh, well, really, I was sad because I was in a dark place because I tried to save this guy that lived in the building that I really didn't know nothing about.
We'll get into it. I was like, what?
I was confused, and then it continued, and I was still kind of confused. And then it ended, and I was, I guess, less confused, but still
slightly
disappointed.
I was still pretty confused by the end.
There are holes that never got
I
filled.
understood what happened. Except when it comes to, the magical things that were happening. That I'm unclear on.
Yeah.
So, everybody arrives, the plane. Except this time it's a woman.
Yep.
Not Tattoo.
Right.
And Michael Peña is playing Mr. Rourke. And
Terrible accent.
Has a lot of accents.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Good evening. I am Mr. Rurik, the ambassador to your deepest desires. Let me officially welcome you to Fantasy Island.
Yeah, what happened to Michael Peña? He was really on the rise.
Was he?
Yeah.
I never cared for him. I never think he was a good actor.
Well, he was nominated for stuff, I think.
Really?
Well, maybe his movies were. I mean, he was in Crash and End of Watch. He's in that. Well, anyway, Michael Peña. The plane lands and 5 people get off.
Yeah, group of people. I don't know.
And it's Lucy Hale from Pretty Little Liars. But it was fun to watch her.
In this different
I watched all of Pretty Little Liars. I don't know how I stuck it out. I remember my friend was 2 or 3 seasons behind me, and she'd be like, oh, and Ezra so-and-so, this happened, and I was like, what? Oh, 'cause so many things happen on that show that you can't keep them all in your head. There's too many things. Everyone's been the bad guy.
It's like a whole.
It's so incredibly dense. So I was like, what show are you watching?
That's kind of like Revanche, in all honesty.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't tell you. I mean, who knows? One day to the next.
What happened? So Lucy Hale is there. Maggie Q, who's fabulous.
Gorgeous, too.
She was underutilized. Well, I mean, she was sort of the emotional grounding of the movie. She was given the heavy lifting.
Yes.
Which she was fine at.
Yeah.
But I know her to be such a kick-ass action person from like Nikita and from whichever Die Hard movie she was in. The one with Justin Long. Live Free and Die Hard.
Oh.
Which was okay.
Okay.
But anyway, so I was like ready for her to kick some ass, and it didn't ever really happen. So, what are you going to do?
I was ready for this movie to do more. It was quite boring. I checked my watch multiple times in an hour and 45-minute movie or whatever. So
So, and then it's a different guy who I don't know. And then it's Ryan Hansen, who's just Blaze being Blaze. Just Blaze being Blaze.
Just Blaze being Blaze.
You never watched the Bachelor parody? Enduring Love? Enduring Love?
No, you mean, wait.
There was like a web series that like Junda and Raphael was in.
Yes.
Ken Marino.
Where they had like the fire.
Burning Love.
Burning Love.
Got there. Okay.
Burning Love. That's right.
Ryan Hansen.
Because Enduring Love was like
that weird Daniel Craig movie based on a Ian McEwan book.
Not where I was going at all.
What were you thinking?
No, I was thinking of the reality fake show that we liked until it got really bad. Unreal.
That was so good until it got so bad.
So bad. But that was endless love. Everlasting. Everlasting was that what it was called.
Wow. Okay. So anyway, yes. Ryan Hansen.
Burning Love.
Burning Love. And
I only watched an episode or two of that.
And Party Down.
Which I never saw.
So good.
Okay.
So good. And Jimmy Yang from Silicon Valley and various other things.
And
Crazy Rich Asians.
Was he?
He was the crazy party guy on the barge.
Oh, yeah, maybe. Who was the army guy?
I had no idea.
He was a terrible actor.
He was not a good actor.
Terrible.
So I was like, and that guy was there. Regardless, they all get to Fantasy Island now. I want to talk about this house.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Yeah.
I was like, yes. Aside from the crazy torture, but it was gorgeous. These wraparound porches and these verandas.
Yeah.
And, ooh. I was like, sign me up.
I would go on vacation there.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the
fantasy weird. I mean, again, let's go back to the fantasies. So, like, the first one we get is
well, right. So they've all won a contest to come to Fantasy Island. And
red flag.
Oh no. And their wildest dreams will be fulfilled. And so then, of course, we go into each fantasy. Right.
Well, so the first one is the two brothers, Blaze guy and Jin Yang.
Blaze being Blaze.
Just Blaze being Blaze.
So, these two brothers, oh, bro, yeah.
Real broy.
Yeah, that nonsense. And theirs is the first one, and they have just like this big, lavish
their
party.
Their fantasy is to have it all.
Oh, that was their fantasy.
Yeah. So, and Michael Pena has to interpret, they fill out like a questionnaire, he has to interpret what their fantasy is going to be. And that's his interpretation. So there's like jet skis and hot chicks and hot guys. I mean, I love this.
I love this.
Oh, you think being gay means all I want is ripped, juicy, delicious men? I got layers, dudes.
Everything needed to be turned up to like 11.
Yeah.
Like you were saying. Like,
everything
it was like, oh, how was your fantasy with Ricardo? What was his name?
Alejandro.
Did you have fun with your boy toy Alejandro last night?
But it was like, oh, this Brazilian hot,
his
sexy
package
guy.
Stuff to the nines? I agree.
Yeah, it definitely needed to have been. Like, I want it to be like, oh, and then he is
Make it R.
surrounded. Yes, R, surrounded by these naked asses, and he's just in the middle or whatever. I don't care.
Just like dicks.
Yes. Yeah. I was like, where's some asses? I don't know.
Yeah.
Disappointing.
It wasn't that. It needed to.
Well, like
go there.
Just if we're supposed to believe, I guess their fantasy was not sexual necessarily in nature. It was they wanted it all as in hot people to fuck and money and party.
They wanted.
What does that mean? I don't.
Well, because I guess it came with the the house they were in and money and drugs and because that ended up being the catch.
Right.
It wasn't well formed.
No.
So they're doing that. And now I'm thinking about it later, knowing how it ends. Like Lucy Hale is just real hungry for Dick.
You boys can always take Patrick's bungalow and he can bungalow with me.
Yeah.
Like she's going in on the soldier guy.
Mind if I join you?
Please. This guy's been giving me nothing.
And I really thought the soldier guy was going to be gay too, because he's like, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. He was terrible. He was just a bad
He was
actor.
a very bad actor. But like he shows his fantasy is to be a soldier because his dad was a soldier and it's all convoluted.
This seems
But
so strange to me.
They show up and there's like a hot guy and he's like, oh my God, like he's having like,
Yeah.
I clearly know this person. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, is it going to be his lover? Yeah. And that's why he wasn't into Lucy Hale. No, it's his dad and it's like a whole convoluted thing about he wanted to be a soldier, but his mom made him promise he wouldn't because his dad died. And he didn't have the courage to be a hero.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
As I'm thinking about this all, because this was so tedious. It was all so tedious, and I was just like, Jesus, these fantasies are terrible.
Yeah.
There's always a weird element to them where I'm like, oh, and then they're gonna die. Like, you know, they had this pool, and there were the people doing backflips and jet skis, and
Yeah.
the stupid little jetpack water thing where it's like,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, so someone's gonna get like beheaded in the fucking pool, and
Yeah.
it's gonna like turn, right?
Well, because you thought this movie was a horror movie, right?
I did.
It was marketed as a horror movie, right? It's Blumhouse's
Blum-
fantasy. It's a horror movie, right? I really don't know who this movie is for.
I don't
It's
know.
just like
this
a
movie-
sad drama that's a mystery.
ish.
You said I wasn't the type to throw in the towel, that I was a fighter. Like Muhammad Ali.
It's not scary. Like
Oh, no.
it literally was the absence of scary.
At best, creepy. Mostly
What was
just
creepy?
confusing.
What was creepy? It was every cliche of a horror movie without any scares.
I mean, the only scary thing was when, like, the burn victim would, like, show up in the corner and be like,
Because they were like, ah!
yeah.
I don't find that scary.
I don't find that scary,
it
just
annoying.
startling or whatever.
I guess the opening scene with the girl trying to escape was kind of thrilling.
Oh, right, it was a little runaway bride. Ready or not. Baby fish mouth.
Baby fish mouth! Baby fish mouth!
Yes, sir, that's my baby.
No, sir. Don't mean maybe.
That's it. Time's up.
Baby talk. Baby talk! So anyway, it turns out Lucy Hale's fantasy is that she was really bullied as a kid because she didn't develop and she looked like a little boy. And that's her words. This girl picked on her.
Yeah.
She had a crazy bully and it set her off. Yeah, what's going on? What's turning in your brain?
Well, so spoiler. Do we care?
No one cares.
Okay, spoiler alert. So the whole thing ultimately comes...
It's a convoluted mess.
It's a convoluted mess, but it comes to this whole head that basically... What's her name?
Lucy Hale.
Lucy Hale. She's related to Joe McHale. No, different.
It's Joel McHale. She's like not Irish Joel McHale's cousin.
What do I know her from? She seems so familiar.
Pretty Little Liars promos?
No.
She's
Anyway.
like a country, not a star. She has like, or pop. She has recorded a music video.
Full moon is shining like a spotlight.
Okay.
So maybe that?
I don't know. Anyway, it turns out
Right.
everyone has been brought to this island as part of her fantasy, which is to exact revenge because they all were complicit in the death of her...
Guy that she went on one date with
Yes.
and decided she was in love with him.
Who died in a fire that was an accident, and there was miscommunication, and people thought that he wasn't there, but he was there, and then he got locked in his
It
room.
was like no one's real fault.
It was like a combination of like, oops, that was a mistake, and you know, shit luck, basically.
Yeah, it was no one had any intent to kill him.
No.
And so while they can feel guilt over something that happened, survivor's guilt, whatever, Maggie Q is like, I was new to the apartment building and I left the kettle on and then I forgot to turn the burner off and I set the apartment on fire. It's my fault. And I was like, what?
What?
What's happening? Do you have the paper towels hanging over the... What? I mean, I guess you're not used to the stove,
but what?
it was like a weird walk.
It was a really weird nonsense thing.
Like, have her be the landlord and she's shisty and she didn't fix the wiring in the building. Like, have something
Sure.
interesting happen.
I don't know. It's all stupid. But anyway, the whole question that I had that brought this all about.
Right.
So her fantasy was to bring them all there and exact revenge. But then it also turns out that her fantasy was to exact revenge on this high school girl that had nothing else to do with it.
She gets all the fantasies. It seems like she had 2 fantasies.
But you're only allowed one by the rules of the island.
Her fantasy is to exact revenge on everyone she chooses. So even though high school bully girl wasn't related to the fire or the ending in any way, it was still revenge.
Maybe it was like, my fantasy is to exact revenge on anyone that's wronged me.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Even inadvertently through the death of my one date part.
I mean, I think perhaps a better actress could have really camped it up.
Sure.
She's full crazy.
Sure, full crazy. Where's Ali Larder?
Oh my god, yeah. But by the way, yes. And then she's exacting Saw revenge on her high school. And she's like, oh, I love it. Oh wait, no I don't.
Oh, you're real.
And then she pretends.
But she knew that she was real? It was all an act?
It was all an act. But then she pretends to save her, to be good, to then trick them all into going through with their separate fantasies that they're fake getting from the island, or real, I guess, but the overarching fantasy is that they'll be exacting revenge, so she wants them to know that she's getting revenge on them for the guy that died in the fire.
But some of them don't know that.
Ryan Hansen.
Blaze just dies.
Blaze is and then I died.
He had no idea why. It was so convoluted.
Yeah, no, also just don't do this.
Just don't do this. Or
just make it, the fantasy is what you thought it was, but it wasn't, and now there's a magical crystal that it's sort of the heart of Corazon in the Romancing the Stone, when they're remember the mother's milk and it's dripping and then they pull it out. There's a bunny. Oh god, that movie's so good.
It is good.
But no, there was some dripping snake crystal that dripped black water.
Yeah.
That if you drank it, the island gave you a fantasy, and if you stayed there, the fantasy continued.
Yes.
Because Mr. Rourke,
he's the genie, and this island is his bottle, trapped forever. And if he doesn't give every guest their fantasy, he loses his love.
He found it, and then his wife had died before they found it, and then his fantasy was that they could be together, but then she still kept getting sick. His fantasy was to meet her when they first met, and I guess she was sick when they first met still. So then she would just get... But weird.
Then make your fantasy that she didn't die.
You only get one. Oops. I mean, I'm just saying that's weirdly Sisyphean, and that was a conversation in this, and I was but dude, what are you doing? Honestly, what? Wouldn't you just be oh, this is not gonna work?
My question is, the 2 brothers, Ryan Hansen and Jimmy Yang.
Yeah.
Ryan Hansen gets shot and is killed.
Yeah.
Then at the end, spoiler, whatever, who gives a shit? He's oh no, my fantasy, even though he already had a fantasy, but I guess
he said because
it was Ryan Hansen's fantasy.
Yeah, he was technically you came along on your brother's fantasy,
but also,
so you get your own.
Oh, I'm just bringing a friend? That seems weird. Anyway, he's oh, well, my fantasy would be that Ryan Hansen would have
his own life outside of this island
and could live on, and oh god. So then Michael Pena is oh, well, then you have to stay here forever?
Yeah.
But my thought is then is Ryan Hansen just gonna keep getting shot and come back to life? That was separate. That was just the wife.
That was just the wife because he picked the wrong fantasy. The wife was already sick when they first met. He was oh, I wish I could just go back and have that moment of when
but he didn't know she was sick yet. Oh, now that is sort of interesting, but I missed it.
I mean, that was not presented clearly in the movie. That was conjecture of what I pieced together from what they told us. I don't know. I think this needed to be reworked entirely. I think it would have been easier to do, everyone picks these vapid things, right? Everyone's basic ass bitches. They have these stupid fantasies that are real vapid.
Maybe Mr. Rourke is bored with, it's always the same dumb fantasy. So then he's I'm going slightly mad.
Yeah.
And he starts to fuck with people, and he's the, you know.
I'd be down with that, where then it's just things go a little awry, or maybe something's off kilter, or whatever it is, and they want this fucking fantasy of oh yeah, I'm gonna get this dinosaurs, or
I would love it.
Whatever it is.
I'm gonna ride on a unicorn. I mean, they could have done so many things.
Sure.
Honestly.
Whatever.
I'm gonna save the rainforest. Whatever it is. There's so many things.
Well, but no, see, I think you can't do something like that. I think it all should be selfish focused.
No, I'm just saying that, like, you can do anything. Make something exciting.
And like but yes, I like the idea that the island starts to eat the ones that are not.
Yeah, you're not
good.
worthy. You didn't pick a good fantasy, or you weren't selfless enough, or whatever. I mean, honestly, because it felt like it was trying to do Cabin in the Woods. Honestly, they should have gotten Alex Garland and Joss Whedon to do Punch Up. Or just do it altogether.
Do it. It was. I think at a certain point, this movie was unsalvageable.
Well, okay. Can we talk about? There was that thing going around that was like, oh, what's a movie trope that you're like, I'm cool if I never see it again? People packing framed pictures into suitcases and bringing them places. It's not a thing.
Not a thing.
It's not a thing. Also, how long has it been since you saw me, or since since this thing happened? Well, it's been 6 years, 27 days, 15 minutes, and you're like, no. If it's that serious, you have a problem.
I mean, I guess you could do the math quick in your head, but like...
I mean, personally, I cannot.
Right.
But I feel like that's like, I think you're holding on too tight.
Yeah.
If you're counting the hours, you're holding on too tight. We can get rid of, I'm so hot, but I'm eating french fries and a burger. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
I'm cool. It's just unnecessary.
It is.
And it's always like from a male gaze.
Exactly.
Like,
that's the thing.
Oh my God, you're hot, but you're not uptight about food. I love you. And then Michael Rooker shows up. I forgot. There's a whole nother plot. The guy in the forest with the curly hair.
Oh yeah, what was his deal?
He was a private eye.
Right.
That was hired by
someone
to figure out what was really going on Fantasy Island. So he's wandering around the woods and he keeps kind of running into them, and he's like, you gotta get out of here!
Right.
It's a trap!
Yeah.
Basically.
He has the whole island rigged and everyone's evil and it's evil.
I'm a PI. Client offered me a big old payday to figure out what happens here and how.
So I guess his fantasy wasn't fulfilled. Or it was, but then he...
No, I don't think he ever was given his fantasy.
His daughter.
Oh.
But then she turned into a black goo person?
But then my fantasy started. I saw my daughter who I'd lost years ago. It was beautiful. But then it got all twisted. It became a nightmare.
I mean, how many people are coming here that aren't dying?
I don't know.
Right? Because, I mean...
I think theirs were all mostly just because it wasn't their fantasies, it was her fantasy where she wanted them all to die.
So in this scenario, when it's usually on this island, you're just like the better for it? Like the TV show? Like, oh...
I guess.
But Michael Rooker was like, then my daughter turned into a creepy zombie goo person.
Right. Because they're not real?
I don't know, but he was there, and there was a side plot, and he had a map, and there was a map, and she kept finding the map and losing the map, and I gotta get the map. And I was like, what's happening? It's an island, it's fine. Like, but honestly though, what's going on? So there was that side plot, and then...
Which never really culminated in anything.
No,
he throws himself off a cliff.
He sacrifices himself because he sees bully high school girl and Lucy Hale as like projections of his daughter, sort of.
I guess.
So he's like, I'll save you. Oh, because her therapist... Okay, now what about this? So Lucy Hale also had a vendetta against her therapist.
Who also was like this huge ass muscle guy. He was like
burly and his mouth was so
well, because that was what her fantasy was.
Right.
Yeah.
But that was also her fantasy? Like...
Right, how many fucking again, I think...
Was the psychiatrist also kidnapped?
I think she wanted revenge.
And that was the first stage?
I don't know.
Like, she's been there. She sewed his fucking mouth shut and made him a goo person, and then she left, and then she came back when they kidnapped her bully, and then she left, and then she came... There's a lot, like, how many fantasies did she fucking get?
Right? Confusing.
Yeah. I do want to know, who was clamoring for a Fantasy Island remake?
It was available IP.
Although, would I watch the TV show if it came out now? Probably not.
If there was something a little bit more interesting than that.
If it was more Quantum Leap and they had a really earnest lead, I mean, no one's as earnest as Scott Bakula, but it's Scott Bakula. I mean, NCIS New Orleans is basically unwatchable, so like, give him a different show. And it's fantasy. I love this. In a white suit? Yes! Love it. But sadly, no, that won't happen.
No. There's something to this.
Right.
But also not.
They just didn't do anything interesting with it.
It's
like,
just
it wasn't a horror movie. Like literally the first hour and a half, hour 20, sort of spooky things happen, but it's mostly just like a sad drama.
This is the life you've always wanted, no?
Okay, enough. She's a child.
And you are her mother.
It just wasn't scary.
No, it certainly wasn't scary. I really actually wish that there was a lot more Ready or Not.
Yeah, start the movie with a montage of different fantasies.
Sure.
So we get a flavor of it.
Yeah.
And they can be funny, and they can be weird, and they can be this, and they can be that.
Yeah.
And go, this is kind of fun. So you get more variety.
I think if you started off with that, right? It's a real business, and whatever it is, it's like the magic of Fantasy Island, and everyone loves it, and it's usually pretty great.
And so far, it's always been nice things.
Exactly. And then whatever...
Lucy Hale breaks the system.
Right. The stars align, or whatever the fuck it is, and something goes wrong, and now the island is eating people.
Oh,
like,
okay.
Not like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, ooh, the island was just granting fantasies, and everyone was happy, and
but
it was like...
pissed off Mother Nature, and
now... Exactly. Or whatever the fuck it is, and something's gone wrong.
Yeah.
And either you die, or you get off the fucking island.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot more simple.
Yeah.
And you could do a lot of fun stuff at the beginning and with a quick montage of like, here's this fantasy, you know, ooh, Charlize Theron with a whip or whatever, and then it's like,
love this.
Like, yeah, you're like, okay, this is fun. You can have silly cameos like that even, you know, whatever.
I mean, Charlie's not signing on, but, you know, where's Brooke?
You never know.
You never know.
I mean, but like,
she's
you know,
down to clown.
Whatever it is, so-and-so's fantasy of like, you know, this celebrity with like, ooh, kinky, whatever, you know, you're like, okay, sure, that's the fantasy that you fucking paid 10 grand for.
Tom Selleck would sign up for that.
Sure.
Yeah. That tier.
You're right. Yes. Yeah. But you know, like that kind of thing.
Is Ricardo Montalban still alive? If so, make a cameo. That's fun. He might be dead. I'm not sure. Oh, but we didn't talk about, so my big question when we went to this movie, the only thing I know about Fantasy Island is Tattoo, is the character, right? Okay, is Tattoo going to show up? How is Tattoo going to show up?
Oh.
Yeah.
Because they had that whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, they obviously couldn't call him that before, like...
It had to be like a...
Oh. So his brother keeps calling him T.
You can call him T.
Dude.
What?
We talked about this.
He's like, don't call me that nickname. That's a stupid nickname.
That's not my name. It's Brax.
Sure. I think that was it.
Something weird.
I think it was Brax.
College nickname. Brax is fine.
And then it turns out that his nickname was T or Tattoo because he got a tattoo that said tattoo.
Right. And that was like, oh, and Michael Pena was like, now you're going to work for me, so you're like Tattoo.
Right.
And I was like, okay.
Welcome to Fantasy Island, Tattoo.
For the inevitable sequel?
No.
It's not happening.
Nope.
What IP could Blumhouse take next?
Ooh.
Love Boat.
Oh my god.
You know, it could be like Kill Cruise, but like Love Boat. Ghost Ship. Love Boat. Or just remake Love Boat. God, all the TV shows in the 70s were just horny.
Yeah.
It was just like, let's get it on. I was really hoping, I don't think we're ever going to get a Wish Upon. I think that was just like lightning in the bottle of
But like, wouldn't that have been good
trash.
too if it was just like, oh, it's Fantasy Island, but there's a blood price to be paid.
Yes! Or get really fucking campy with it. Or over the top. You never went over the top.
No.
It was just sort of like, oh,
No.
and then there's a zombie person. Weird. It was bored with itself.
It was. So yeah, I would say fully skip it.
Not your fantasy?
Not my fantasy.
Maybe Michael Fassbender would have done a cameo. He needs the money.
Ooh, I would like that.
Right? He's doing trash.
Michael Fassbender could be in my fantasy for sure.
Ah, great Harry Hole.